Hello everyone and welcome to this webinar brought to you by Dairy Data Warehouse and Farmers Guardian. My name's Katie Jones and I'm Head of Livestock at Farmers Guardian. Today we are going to be discussing transition cow disease, and in particular we are going to be looking at how Predicta GUARDIAN from Dairy Data Warehouse can help farmers manage cows during the all-important transition period. So I'm delighted to be joined today by representatives from Dairy Data Warehouse. So I'd like to start by asking them to all introduce themselves. Armin, over to you.
Thanks, Katie. My name's Armin Pearn. I'm a veterinarian by training, and I'm leading the insights team. So we are working with artificial intelligence and develop prediction models for dairy farmers.
And Fernando?
Thank you, Katie. Good evening, all. My name is Fernando Mazeris. I'm the manager of Dairy Data Warehouse, also veterinarian by training, and working in the company since the beginning, and obviously focusing, as we do in Dairy Data Warehouse, with all data services for the dairy industry.
And finally, JP.
Good evening, Katie. Yeah, JP based over here in Suffolk in east of England. And I support Dairy Data Warehouse on their business development and accounts management across the UK, Europe and North America.
Great, thank you everyone and welcome today. So let's get started. Firstly, let's talk about transition cow disease. So Armin, over to you. Can you talk to us about transition cow disease and the importance for the dairy farmer?
Sure. Maybe the easiest is if we look at our web application Predicta to see actually what transition cow diseases are and what they do. So generally speaking, transition cow diseases are diseases that occur in the first 4 weeks, 42 days of lactation. However, the root cause is usually the previous lactation and the dry period. So there are metabolic challenges, metabolic stress for the cow when she calves, but that is usually due to issues in the previous lactation, such as late conception, high body condition score, and those cows then often calve in with a high body condition score and have problems then managing the milk production and hormonal cycle. Classic diseases are milk fever, ketosis, displaced abomasum, mastitis. These would be classic challenges cows face in early lactation. And that's also what Predicta GUARDIAN is tackling and helping to manage.
Great, thanks Armin. And Fernando, could you just come in here and give us a little bit more information about how these diseases can affect the herd and what impact they can have?
Transition cow diseases are really affecting the dairy farmers around the globe, of course, due to the characteristics of it, as Armin said, being metabolic diseases very closely related to high producing cows, and they having an important impact. So on a slide that I'm going to show you at the moment, you can see a study done in 2011 in North America, where you can see there the incidence of the most important transition cow diseases, as Armin mentioned, milk fever, retained placenta, displaced abomasum as examples, and their clinical disease incidence. Now, the study from Dr. LeBlanc is also telling us that 50% of dairy cows suffer at least one disease in transition. What I have been showing in this chart, it are clinical cases, but as we know very well, in the case, for example, of ketosis, there is a very, very important impact of subclinical disease, meaning that are not visible at our eye, okay, having clinical symptoms, the animals, but they are really suffering of this disease. And this ketosis disease is also a very important factor impacting on many aspects of the herd, on the individual animal and of course of the herd. clearly this is connected with reduced production, with fertility impact, with having difficulties for the animals to get pregnant, and therefore that has a clear implication afterwards on increasing the risk of animals leaving the herd, of early culling. Besides, of course, the specific effects of in the case of the clinical cases, of the real cost of the disease that is very costly for all the dairy farmers that are having herds that are suffering of it.
So JP, over to you now. Looking at artificial intelligence, so how can artificial intelligence be used on farms when it comes to transition cow management?
From our point of view, I suppose quite simply now with the tool we have, Predicta GUARDIAN. Obviously, AI is very much in the news, in the press at the moment, but we have spent a lot of work in the background with Armin and his team in DDW. We've tested on nearly 5,000 herds, thousands of cows, and with that we are able to bring a solution that very simply generates health alarms for individual cows 6 to 8 weeks prior to calving, which we believe is a fantastic tool for farmers to have use of. Here, what you can see on screen at the moment is literally kind of one of the main dashboards when you come in, and you can see your active alerts and everything else regarding cows that potentially have alarms or at risk of getting a disease during the transition period. And no doubt we'll delve into that more as we go through the webinar. One of the fantastic things is also it's obviously a digital tool, so there's no need for any existing software, no need for any hardware, and also the way the alarms can be delivered can be done by either email or by WhatsApp. So again, it's trying to really make the adoption of cutting edge technology, as in AI, and really sweating the data the farmer has on their herd on farm, but making sure that the mode of delivery is very, very, very easy for them to actually take actions with it.
Thanks, JP. And Armin, just drilling down into more of a detail on AI, how can it be used to improve animal welfare, reduce culling rates, and improve milk production?
So it's not any different with most other diseases. Prevention is better than cure. And with the transition cow diseases, in particular with ketosis, for instance, currently all tools available, they allow to diagnose ketosis in early lactation, so usually around 4 to 7 days after calving at the earliest. However, that is already 6 weeks too late. Ideally, animals get preventive attention already around dry-off, or in the early dry period, because then the negative consequences can be largely avoided. And AI is a tool that allows exactly that. It recognizes patterns a lot earlier than humans can do that. It's looking at the previous lactation, previous conception dates, and the shape of the lactation curve, as well as historic health events. Taking all of that into account, AI can then recognize these risk factors and express them very, very early on, and help farmers drive the prevention investment towards the animals that need it the most, thereby optimizing not only cost, but in particular disease incidence, transition cow disease incidence, animal welfare, and of course, other factors such as milk production and fertility.
And Fernando, how does Predicta GUARDIAN actually work? How does it flag up these at-risk cows?
Absolutely. So Predicta GUARDIAN has several algorithms that are in the DDW cloud. And as JP mentioned before, when the farmer is getting connected to our system, we are processing the data on a daily basis for coming from their herd management software, the data of the cows. And all this information related to the reproduction events, to the milk production of the animal, previous diseases, and several other pieces of information are used by the Predicta GUARDIAN models, okay, to then forecast the risk of an animal to get any of the diseases we work with in the following lactation. What I'm telling you is happening at dry off time of the actual lactation the animal is in. So let me show you how, at least in our webpage, looks like these active alerts. You see here those animals that are in these respective tabs are individual cows that are having a specific information. And of course, there in the different colors, we have what is the alarm type or the health event risk that is flagged by that specific animal. So then the farmer with the veterinarian can absolutely define, based on these animals having a certain risk that we will tell you later, show you in the tool, it can also be configurable on a certain level. It's then decide together, as I said, together with the advisor, what are the preventive procedures that should be done to be able to avoid these animals as suffering of these respective diseases on the next lactation. That's how the whole system works, and that's how we are using artificial intelligence for the benefit, in this case, of the dairy farmer.
And Armin, can you tell us how good this tool is to assess these at-risk cows? How reliable is it?
We've developed, trained, but also tested and validated the model as we mentioned, at around 5,000 cows, as JP mentioned, 5,000 herds, as JP mentioned. So that allows to precisely and accurately assess how accurate the tool is. There is, of course, not that easy to predict the risk of animals at dry off, so 6 to 8 weeks prior to the actual disease event. So there's a lot of biological uncertainty in it, but we know the performance of the model, and in conjunction or combination with knowledge of the incidence, AI can tailor-make or customize and personalize the model to the specific farm, and provide the best setting for the tool on a given farm. In a nutshell, for any herd that has a disease incidence of ketosis, for instance, above 15 to 20%, and in the UK that would be most farms, the tool will provide a positive outcome, an economically positive outcome, apart from, of course, also the welfare and aspect. But so the economic performance on the farm using AI is positive as soon as the incidence is over like 15%.
Great, thank you. And JP, can I bring you back in here? Could you tell us a little bit more about Predicta GUARDIAN and when it was introduced to the market?
Yeah, so obviously the team in DDW have been working in the background, developing the tool, developing the solution. So there's been a number of years of obviously working with all of those test herds and cows. And we obviously started with a lot of, let's say, I suppose, trial pilot farms in 2022, but we really, I suppose, launched Predicta GUARDIAN in 2023, where we're now up to about 300 plus herds across Europe and North America. And they vary from farms with, let's say 60 to 70 cows right up to, 1,000 plus cows. So I suppose the beauty about Predicta GUARDIAN is its adaptability in the sense of where it can go. It's not reliant on software, or it's not reliant on hardware, or it doesn't matter what size the herd is, so to speak.
So if I was a dairy farmer and I wanted to start using Predicta GUARDIAN, what support would I then get from you guys?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. So obviously, once the farmer is enrolled and they permission their herd data and we validate it, we then ourselves in-house can have a look at it. And if the farmer wants or needs, we can send a video, which we've done with a lot of farms where, the team have a review of the data and give a little overview of what they're seeing themselves. But one of the great things about the tool is that you can involve your vet or your nutritionist, because you can add them in as a secondary user, or even your herd manager or any other members of the team. So they can actually get access to the alerts, or to the cows, that are being alerted to, that are at risk, and whether that's, let's say, a weekly email or something. So I suppose from our experience, in some ways, the best way of utilizing Predicta Guardian is involving the team that are supporting the farmer on the ground, and that understand, let's say, the protocols that are happening on farm. But from our point of view, I suppose, look, we've got going on nearly, as Fernando said, 10, we're heading into 11 years of experience looking at dairy cow data on a daily basis. We ourselves are able to have a look and ideally provide a video solution. We don't necessarily go down the farm driveway, because obviously we're trying to make it as cost-effective type tool. So really, digital support, I suppose, is a very simple answer, Katie.
Thanks, JP. And also, what would a dairy farmer need to get started? Are there various permissions that need to be granted to make sure that this data is getting to you?
I know it sounds silly, but internet, in the sense of we need to get a connection. So we're able to get that permissioned herd data every 24 hours, because basically Predicta Guardian runs every 24 hours. So it's having that internet connection. Second thing then will be the farmer needs to have one of the herd softwares that we currently work with. And let's say UK wise, that we're covering, the majority of softwares that are used, whether they're herd management software or whether they're milking equipment software, or even some of the milk recording companies out there as well. So I think we're covering a number of herd data capture softwares being used in that sense. So that's good. And really, it's a case of enrolling the farmer. We probably need about 2 minutes, 3 minutes of their time. They get an email from us where they can click on, the terms and conditions. I think one thing to stress here, Katie, is look, the data is the farmer's data. And they're only permissioning their data for DDW to, let's say, process to run Predicta Guardian. And I think, it goes nowhere than that. And the other thing is, obviously, they can offboard themselves at any given time. And our process really from there is just, we run, how would you say, monthly invoicing. So it is a very simple process. Again, some of the things I suppose we focus in on is, you don't need to buy any new software. You don't need to buy any new hardware. You just, as I say, an internet connection. And I suppose in some ways, a willingness to try and look at adopting a new tool or solution into your your transition cow protocols. So I think in some ways, probably once you've got an internet connection, maybe an openness to really working with AI, and just maybe a tool that can support your herd and get the best out of that data that you're capturing on a daily basis.
Thank you, JP. And Fernando, JP mentioned the data, and that data not going anywhere. Sometimes there can be a nervousness around AI and giving your data to someone else. What do you do to make sure that data is secure?
Yes, a very important question, of course. First of all, very important thing JP said was that the owner of the data is the farmer. So that's clearly the first stepping stone into this discussion, right? Then starting from there, the farmer decides to whom to share the data with. In this case, he's sharing the data with us, okay? As we said, on a 24 hours basis to process it for delivering this service back. Obviously, then the farmer can decide to connect some consultants into the tool, that they will also be getting the alerts that he's getting. And that is 100% of the decision of the farmer, and is done by the farmer in the tool. So we are not even involved into that part either. So it's totally under the control of the farmer. The other thing is that anyone stop at any moment in time. There are no minimum period of time to be, tying up time. Nothing of that is like that. So farmer can decide to stop at any moment. As the JP said, going precisely to the data security piece, of course, we try to do as much as we can on best practices to guarantee as much as we can the security of the data going into our servers. But it's important to say that it's not shared with anybody that the farmer is not deciding to share it with. So again, the farmer remains the controller because he's the owner of that data in our platform.
Thanks for that, Fernando. And Armin, over to you. We've heard lots about AI, but why is AI better than some of the traditional common practices that farmers are already using to combat transition cow diseases? And perhaps you could outline some of these practices that are already used on farm.
Yes, indeed. Farmers, of course, are already dealing and trying to manage transition cow disease. In general, the decisions are often made intuitively, a gut feeling, and in many cases too late, meaning when the disease is already occurring. So what AI really can bring here is a data-driven approach. That means, firstly, AI can recognize patterns very early, so farmers are now able to prevent rather than treat, prevent early around the dry period. It also allows to use the prevention investment a lot more wisely, meaning targeted at the cows who need it, rather than, for instance, treating all the cows preventatively or only the cows that are really already in very bad shape around dry off. So AI brings a rational data-driven approach and helps to optimize the prevention investment and allows to act a lot earlier. Maybe let's look at just a few example animals. If we navigate to the alerts. So here that would be, for instance, an animal that has been flagged by the model as having a risk for ketosis and mastitis. If we look, right, that is an older animal, parity 6. And if we look at its history, so this would be its previous lactation. That's an animal that took 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 inseminations. It finally conceived in days in 215. So this animal will have a very long calving interval, way over 410, 420 days, so way beyond what we'd like to see. So this is an animal that should not experience actually a dry period without prevention for ketosis, for instance, here. It should not actually calve in without having experienced prevention before and run into ketosis and a negative fertility cycle, because the next lactation will be a problem again if we look at the history of this animal. So if we kind of open the last 5 lactations, we see that instead of moving up, let's say after the first lactation, a higher milk yield in the second and then in the third, this animal had already problems in the second and third lactation, then kind of recovered a little bit in the fourth and the fifth lactation. We can see, well, in early lactation, looks like there was a problem. There were some health events here in the green. So we had retained placenta, had as various transition cow diseases, metritis, retained placenta, that then led to challenges with fertility, and this will trigger off a negative downward spiral for this animal. Though these animals should be flagged, identified, and not only the most obvious ones, but all of them ideally that have high risk. And AI is a wonderful tool to do that reliably with every animal that comes to dry off, to have a data assessment without the need for the farmer to actually plow through all the individual data sets.
So JP, there's obviously a lot of data being crunched by this AI tool, but for those farmers that perhaps don't want to delve into the detail or just want to know certain things, what can they do and how can they access the alerts?
Yeah, as Armin has shown, and you've seen on the tool itself, there is a wealth of insight available, which is fantastic, where you can navigate to the dashboard. But very simply, when you log in, you just click on the prevention tab, and you'll see there then settings. You click on settings, and then really it's kind of making some decisions. And this might obviously be part of, okay, well, what your current protocol is, because you can obviously get all the alarms at, for all the diseases, or you might say, well, actually, no, I just want to get an alarms for just ketosis, which then means you click separately. And then from there, and we'll take this example, let's say of ketosis, we just then go, okay, how many days do you want it before calving? So when do you want the alert? Which again, you can obviously decide that yourself. So let's say we leave it at 30 days. And then you've got, let's say, the model configuration, which is set at the moment at express and medium. And as it's set as it is, you can see, let's say, the number of estimated alarms and everything else there. You can also obviously adjust the sensitivity. So you can see roughly potentially for this herd, you're going to be getting about 9 alarms per month. So I think, again, it's farmers understanding, okay, I'm going to be getting 9 alarms per month. Okay, how am I going to manage those cows? And therefore then the next thing is, okay, I click on notification settings where there's edit. And it's very simply, do I choose, okay, I want it by email or I want it by WhatsApp? The majority of farms we work with, it's WhatsApp. And then you literally input your mobile phone number. And one of the beauties about the tool is when we spoke to farmers, let's say at some recent shows we've done, is that, let's say, oh, when are you drying off your cows? Oh, I usually do it on a Wednesday. Great, fine. We'll set the alarm that you have it every Tuesday or Wednesday morning, depending on what you want, at a certain time, let's say between 8 and 9 in the morning or whenever. And then you just click OK and obviously save it. As well as that, you can obviously add a secondary user as well there. So if you've got a herd manager or you've got another member of the team, you can just basically add them in there. So it's a very, very simple way to get set up in the simplest form. Just add your mobile phone number. But again, we're here to help during the onboarding phase, and we can support in talking through that, just understanding, okay, well, actually, what really do you need or what you want to get out of the tool. So again, I think it's going, okay, how do I want this to really support my transition cow, I suppose, protocols on farm, and then just understanding then, okay, how many alerts potentially will I be getting, and then what am I going to do once I get that alert? So yeah, so pretty straightforward really in that sense.
So Armin, would it be fair to say that there was a certain degree of underreporting of transition cow diseases in the UK? And perhaps if you would, you could give us an example of what a UK dairy herd status might be.
So inside the application Predicta GUARDIAN, there is a tab called herd, and their farmers and their consultants, their veterinarians and advisors can get a very quick overview of the situation in the herd. So that's a 200 cow dairy herd in the UK. They are reporting here on the top left 0 ketosis cases. So I would say that there are very few herds that have 0. I would dare to say there is not a single herd that does not have ketosis, at least to a certain extent. Looking at the lactation curves of these herds, or of this herd in particular, you see that the lactation 3+ animals in dark blue, they hardly peak any higher than the lactation 2 and even lactation 1. So one of the elements we look at here is a big ratio. So how big a difference between lactation 1 and lactation 3+ peak. So lactation 3 animals here in this herd clearly have a challenge. They are not really getting going, and transition cow disease is always a good candidate to explain that, why cows are not peaking, not actually bringing their genetic potential on the road. Transition car disease is often a fertility challenge, so these herds often have then irregular fertility pattern or long calving intervals. So the green bar is what we'd like to see, that this herd does go over it in several months. And if we look at the dry animals present, well, it's kind of these waves, these fertility waves. It's not a seasonal calving herd, this is an all year round calving, but there seems to be some challenges. So looking at all of this, there is a high suspicion that cows are not always getting pregnant, and that particularly lactation 3 animals are not getting pregnant. So there are various angles the farmers can here quickly have a peek together with their advisor. If we just were to look at inventory for a moment and look at the days open, we see lactation 1 and lactation 2 animals here at the bottom. They are within the range, so they're getting inseminated day 60 onwards, but lactation 3+ animals, they actually, well, getting inseminated a cycle later, and that could be because they're either not in estrus, because they are struggling to really get through the transition cow period properly, or it is a deliberate choice. But it looks rather that it's difficult to see these cows, difficult to get them pregnant later. And okay, if you look at the days to conception, it's also over 130, particularly here going later in the year, and that is a challenge for transition cow risk. So again, if we look at the health performance here in early lactation, no ketosis cases reported. It's very unlikely. And so if we ask AI in this case, Predicta GUARDIAN does flag various animals here in this herd to be at risk for ketosis. And we've looked at that earlier, why that is. So that can be several inseminations, conceiving late, having transition cow diseases, accumulating risk factors. So this herd certainly could benefit from ketosis prevention and let's say a data-driven transition cow management.
Thank you. And finally, a question about cost. Obviously, cost is something that all dairy farmers are keeping an eye on. So could you give us an idea of the costs associated with Predicta GUARDIAN?
Yeah, certainly. And obviously cost is always paramount, managing on farm. So for us, we run a model very simply like Netflix. So it's a monthly payment that we charge, let's say kind of a herd per cow fee. If we take the example, let's say of 300 cows in the UK, you would be looking at a monthly fee of just under £56 a month for the herd. Obviously, that's dependent on all the cows that we can run a prediction on. So obviously that we have the relevant data and details. Obviously, we will only charge for animals that we're able to run a prediction on. So obviously, if they're heifers and stuff and we haven't had a lactation, we won't be able to run a prediction. Now that works out at £2.24 per cow per year, or even at 18p per month. And I think from our point of view, having a connection, you know, having 6 diseases available that can, you know, we can provide an alert if that animal is at risk. And obviously we all know, and we showed earlier on, the disease risk on farm is predominant. We see ourselves from a lot of the data that a lot of this disease risk is subclinical, and there's a lot going on. So from our point of view, we feel it's very good value for money in the sense for UK farmers, dairy farmers, to, you know, work with Predicta GUARDIAN. We currently run the process where a farmer can come on board and trial it for the first 2 months. So there's no charge for the first 2 months. And then if they want to carry on, we just invoice on a monthly basis. Or if they want to stop at any given stage, that's fine. They can stop at any given stage and we will just invoice for the end of that month. So it's a very, very simple plug and play system. And And for us, yes, we're keen to get more UK farmers on board. We've certainly seen just recently, Fernando came back from a trip in Spain, how Spanish farmers were adapting to using Predicta GUARDIAN and working extremely well for them. So I suppose I would urge any farmers on the call this evening to please get in touch with us, whether that be on our website, obviously dairydatawarehouse.com, or you can also catch us at inquiries@dairydatawarehouse.com as well, and we will pick those up, and it'll probably be myself that will be chatting to one of the farmers and having a discussion about potentially enrolling, or if they have any further questions.
Unfortunately, that's all we've got time for tonight, but thank you very much for joining us. And thank you to Armin, Fernando and JP from Dairy Data Warehouse. There's more information on the website on your screens.